Our whole lives, we've been taught to play a rigged game. A game where we are the pawns and invisible forces, destiny, luck, a distant god, are the players. They taught us to ask, to beg, to wait, to believe that power resided somewhere out there, and that our job was to be worthy, patient, or lucky enough for that power to grant us a favor. This audiobook is an act of rebellion against that lie. It's the moment we tear away the veil of powerlessness and reveal the forbidden truth hidden behind it. The truth is, there are no external players. The universe isn't a king who grants favors. It is a mirror, and the power to shape reality has never been outside. It has always been complete and whole within us. This isn't a manual to learn how to ask better. It's a training to stop asking altogether. Here you won't find formulas for supplication, but the operating principles of creation. You will learn to move from a state of lack to one of certainty, from waiting to action, from victim to creator. You'll discover the secrets of assumption, the mental diet, and aligned action, not as theories, but as tools for absolute mastery. The knowledge you are about to receive is considered forbidden for one simple reason. It returns all responsibility to you, and therefore all power. The question isn't whether you're ready to learn. The question is, are you ready to be free? Chapter 1. The Fraud of Asking. For as long as we can remember, we have been taught a single way to interact with the power of the universe: supplication. We have been told that if we want something, we must ask for it. Ask God, the universe, destiny. We have been instructed in the art of prayer, of petition, of pleading. We kneel, clasp our hands, close our eyes, and from a place of lack, we launch our desires into the void, hoping that an external, benevolent force will take pity on us and grant us what we long for. We have built entire religions and self-help philosophies on this premise, and we have spent our lives in an endless cycle of asking, waiting, and, most of the time, feeling frustrated by the silence we receive in response. The first and most brutal of the forbidden truths is this: the act of asking is the direct cause of you not receiving. It is not a paradox. It is the physics of consciousness, the psychology of supplication, affirming lack. To understand why asking is an act of self-sabotage, we must first analyze the state of consciousness from which it originates. No one asks for something they already feel they possess. The act of asking is born, inevitably, from the consciousness of lack. When you ask, you are performing a powerful ritual of affirming lack. Each supplication is a declaration you make to the universe, and more importantly, to your own subconscious mind. The underlying message is always the same. This is not mine. I don't have it. I am separate from my desire, and I don't have the power to obtain it myself, which is why I need an external force to intervene. This posture instantly places you in a position of inferiority. You become the beggar, and the universe becomes the king. You become the effect, and the external world becomes the cause. It is the act of willingly surrendering your sovereignty. Imagine you want to manifest prosperity. You close your eyes and say, "Universe, please give me more money." What is the quantum field really hearing? It doesn't hear the words "more money." It hears the music, the vibration behind the words. And the vibration is that of fear, of anxiety, of the belief I don't have enough. And the universe, which is a perfect mirror, has no choice but to reflect your state. It gives you back more of the experience of not having enough. It presents you with more unexpected bills, more lost opportunities, more reasons for you to ask again. This is the vicious cycle in which most of humanity is trapped. They feel lack, so they ask. The act of asking reinforces their feeling of lack. The universe reflects that lack, and they, upon seeing the reflection, conclude that the only solution is to ask with more force, with more fervor, without realizing that they are digging their own grave with each new supplication. The physics of emptiness, why the universe ignores beggars. The universe is not a conscious entity with ears that listens to your words. It is an impersonal energy field that responds to the law of resonance. It doesn't understand your language, but it understands your vibration perfectly. Your emotional state, as we have seen, is a frequency. The feeling of yearning, desire, and need is a low-frequency vibration, a vibration of contraction. The reality of your fulfilled desire, abundance, love, health, is a high-frequency vibration, a vibration of expansion. They are like two radio stations on completely different dials. You cannot tune the radio to the AM frequency and expect to hear an FM station. It is a physical impossibility. When you ask from a place of need, you are tuning your internal radio to the frequency of scarcity. And from that dial, the only music you can receive are the experiences of scarcity. To be able to receive the music of abundance, you must first change the dial. You must, in some way, start vibrating at the frequency of abundance before the external evidence of that abundance has appeared. Your subconscious mind, your connection to the field, operates under this same law. It does not respond to the logic of your words, but to the conviction of your feeling. Asking is a confession of doubt. It is admitting that you don't believe your desire is truly yours. And the subconscious, upon receiving this signal of doubt, cannot proceed with the construction. An architect cannot build a building if the client every 5 minutes tells him he's not sure he wants the building or can afford it. The act of asking, therefore, is a short circuit in the manifestation process. It is the act of projecting an image into the mirror while simultaneously shouting at the mirror that the image is not real. The religion of powerlessness. Why then is this idea of asking so deeply rooted in our collective psyche? Because the belief in an external power that grants favors is the foundation of the religion of powerlessness. Many power structures throughout history have understood that the most effective way to control the masses is to convince them that power resides outside of them. If you can convince people that they are unworthy sinners, that they are victims of fate, that they need an intermediary, a priest, a guru, an institution, to communicate with the source of power, then you have created a perfect system of dependence. The truly forbidden knowledge, the great metaphysical secret, is not a magic formula for asking better. It is the revelation that there is no one to ask. The power is not up there. It is in here. The truth is that you are not a subject in the kingdom of a distant God. You are a cell in the mind of God, and as such, you have direct and inherent access to all the power of that mind. You don't need to ask. You just need to remember who you are and start acting accordingly. This is the leap from victim consciousness to creator consciousness. The victim asks. The creator decrees. The victim waits. The creator assumes. The victim begs. The creator receives. And it is through this audiobook that you will learn to make that leap. We will not give you a new and improved manual of supplications. We will give you the operations manual of your own sovereign creative power. The question that arises naturally, with an almost existential urgency, is, if we don't ask, then what do we do? Do we resign ourselves to a passive fate? Do we abandon all hope of change? Quite the opposite. The answer is the first great secret of conscious manifestation, the first pillar of forbidden metaphysics. We stop asking and we start claiming. This is the quantum leap from victim consciousness to creator consciousness. It is the transition from the beggar to the sovereign. The beggar kneels, holds out his hand, and asks the universe for alms. His power resides outside of him. The sovereign stands tall, plants himself in the center of his kingdom, and decrees the law. His power emanates from his own being. A decree is not an arrogant request. It is not an order given from the ego that seeks to dominate. A decree, in its purest form, is a serene and aligned declaration of a truth that already exists on the plane of consciousness. It is the act of giving voice to an invisible reality so that it can manifest in the visible world. When you stop asking, you stop admitting lack. When you decree, you are assuming wholeness. You are changing your identity. You are no longer the person who needs wealth. You become the person who is wealth. You are no longer the person who seeks love. You become the embodiment of love. This is the fundamental difference. Supplication asks the mirror to change its reflection. The decree changes the face that is reflected in the mirror. The supreme decree, the power of I am. At the heart of this sovereign practice are the two most powerful words in human language. The master command of creation, I am. In mystical traditions, I am is the sacred name of divinity, the declaration of pure existence, of the first cause. When you utter these words, you are not simply describing a quality of your personality. You are invoking your own divine nature. You are declaring your unity with the source of all power. Your subconscious mind, that faithful and literal servant, takes anything you put after I am as a direct command about your identity, and its only function is to mold your body, your behavior, and the circumstances of your life to correspond with that decreed identity. We have used this power against ourselves our entire lives. I'm so clumsy. I am a financial disaster. I'm always tired. Each of these phrases is a spell, a decree that, repeated with conviction, has built the very reality we complain about. The first act of mastery is to become a guardian of these two words. It is to refuse to put anything after I am that is not the expression of your highest vision for yourself. The initiate in metaphysical secrets transforms his language. He no longer asks, he decrees. Instead of please universe, give me more money, the initiate centers himself and decrees, I am a magnet for abundance and prosperity. Money flows to me in expected and unexpected ways. Instead of I wish I could find love, the initiate declares, I am the embodiment of love and wholeness, and I attract relationships that are a perfect reflection of my own inner harmony. Instead of I need to heal, the initiate affirms, I am the perfect expression of health and vitality. Every cell in my body knows and manifests its original perfection. This is not a word game. It is a fundamental change of the cause. You are ceasing to be an effect that reacts to life to become the cause that creates it. The workshop of the sovereign mind, integrated practices. The initiate does not leave this transformation to chance. He cultivates it with deliberate practice in the workshop of his own consciousness. The first practice is the audit of the habit of asking. The master, to free himself from a program, must first make it visible. For a week he becomes a silent observer of his own inner language. He takes his journal and without judgment writes down every time his mind goes into supplication mode. I wish I had, I need to, please, let this happen. At the end of the week, he reads the log and becomes aware of how often he has been giving away his power and affirming his own lack. Once he has identified his language of supplication, the master begins the alchemical work of linguistic transmutation. He takes each asking phrase he has identified and, like a poet who refines a verse, he rewrites it as a claiming phrase, as an I am decree. I wish my boss would value me more is transmuted into I am a valuable professional, and my contribution is recognized and rewarded generously. I need to find a solution to this problem is transmuted into I am the source of wisdom and creativity. The perfect solution already resides within me and is revealed to me with ease. This exercise creates a new spell book, a glossary of power he can refer to retrain his inner dialogue. Finally, the initiate knows that the decree must be embodied. The most powerful practice is to act as if. The master asks himself, if I were already the person who has received everything they desire, how would I walk through this room? How would I talk on the phone? How would I make the small decisions of my day? And then he begins to act from that certainty, not as a charade, but as a dress rehearsal for his new reality. He walks with the straight back of confidence. He speaks with the calm of security. He makes decisions from abundance, not from fear. This act of embodiment is the most potent signal he can send to his subconscious. He is telling it, not with words, but with the totality of his being. The old movie is over. This is the new reality. Project this. Project. The fraud has been exposed. The door to the prison of supplication has been opened. You have learned that the universe does not respond to beggars, but to sovereigns. It does not respond to need, but to certainty. Chapter 2. The Universe as a Mirror. We come to the second and most revealing of the metaphysical secrets. The universe is a mirror. This is not a simple poetic metaphor. It is perhaps the most precise description of the mechanics of reality. The law, known in ancient traditions as the principle of correspondence, states that your external reality, your health, your wealth, your relationships, is not a solid, independent entity. It is a reflection, a flawless, unfiltered, and brutally honest reflection of your dominant state of consciousness. Imagine you are in a perfectly dark room. In your hand, you hold a projector of infinite power. The movie inside the projector is the sum total of your habitual beliefs, thoughts, and emotions. When you turn on the projector, the movie is emitted and projected onto the white, neutral walls of the room, which represent the field of infinite potentiality of the universe. What you see on the walls is not the room itself. It is the movie you are projecting. If the movie is a drama of struggle and scarcity, the walls of your life will be filled with images of conflict and lack. If the movie is an epic of triumph and abundance, the walls will reflect that same story. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to change the movie by shouting at the wall. We complain about the images. We fight against them. We try to paint over them from the outside, without realizing that the only way to change the reflection is to enter the projection booth and change the movie we are emitting from within. The world is not doing anything to you. It is showing you with implacable precision what movie you are projecting. Your life is not something that happens to you. It is a feedback loop. It is the echo of the song you are singing in the silence of your soul. To understand how this mirror works, we must analyze it in the three great planes of human experience. The mental plane, the reflection of your beliefs. Your inner world on a mental level is composed of your beliefs and your dominant thought patterns. This is the script that runs in the projector of your mind. The external world reflects this script with perfect fidelity, manifesting as the recurring themes and situations in your life. Think of the dramas that seem to repeat in your existence, often with different characters, but with the same script. Perhaps you have the abandonment pattern. You change partners, but each one, in one way or another, ends up abandoning you. Perhaps you have the non-recognition pattern. You change jobs, but in each one you feel invisible, undervalued, overlooked for promotions. Perhaps you have the almost success pattern. You get right to the edge of a great achievement, and at the last minute something always goes wrong and ruins everything. These are not destinies. They are reflections. They are the external manifestation of a root belief, of a subconscious program. The person with the abandonment pattern probably holds the belief, I am not worthy of unconditional love, or people always leave. The person with the non-recognition pattern believes deep down that my work is not good enough. And the person with the almost success pattern probably harbors a deep fear of success and visibility. The initiate in metaphysical secrets, when faced with one of these recurring patterns, does not ask with frustration, why is this happening to me again? He asks with a deep curiosity, interesting, what belief in me is still so powerful as to project this same movie over and over again? The external pattern is not the prison. The prison is the internal belief. And the pattern is simply the jailer who shows you with brutal kindness where the lock is. The emotional plane, the reflection of your vibration. Your habitual emotional state, your vibration, is perhaps the most powerful aspect of your inner world. The universe is a field of resonance. It attracts what vibrates at the same frequency. The reflection of your emotional state manifests in the quality of your relationships and the atmosphere of your environment. If you live in a state of unexpressed anger or resentment, you will attract people and situations into your life that provoke you, that push that same anger button. The world will constantly give you a reason to be angry, because anger is the frequency you are emitting. If you live in a state of constant anxiety and fear, you will perceive the world as a dangerous place. The mirror of life will show you alarming news, untrustworthy people, and reasons to worry at every turn. On the contrary, if you deliberately cultivate a state of inner peace, you will begin to notice a miraculous change. The people around you will seem calmer. The situations that used to stress you out will lose their power over you. It's not that the world has changed, it's that you have changed the frequency of your receiver, and now you tune into harmony instead of chaos. A powerful practice for the initiate is the vibrational audit. It consists of several times a day, pausing and asking yourself, what is the emotional note I am emitting right now? Is it one of expansion or contraction? This simple awareness allows you to, in real time, begin to tune your instrument, the physical plane, the reflection of your embodiment. Finally, the mirror of correspondence manifests on the densest plane, the physical. Your health and your wealth are the most tangible reflections of your inner state. Your body is the most intimate mirror. An inner state of relentless self-criticism, unresolved guilt or chronic resentment, as we have seen, translates into a body chemistry of stress. And this chemistry, sustained over time, is reflected in the body as muscle tension, inflammation, a weakened immune system, and eventually as illness. As a physical symptom is not an enemy. It is the echo of an emotional scream that has not been heard. Your financial situation is a brutally honest reflection of your beliefs about abundance and deservingness. The lack of money in your bank account is not the problem. It is the symptom. The real problem is the poverty consciousness within you. It is the belief that you don't deserve it, that it's difficult, that it's selfish. The external world simply proves you right. The work of the alchemist, therefore, is never on the outside. It is useless to try to clean a stain on the mirror. The real work is to clean the stain on your own face. When you change the cause, what's inside, the effect, what's outside, must change by law. It is inevitable. The initiate in this knowledge transforms his relationship with life. He stops being a fighter and becomes a diagnostician. Faced with an unwanted reflection, he does not lament. He does not blame. He retreats to the silent workshop of his consciousness and begins the work of self-inquiry. He asks himself, if this external situation is a perfect mirror, what is it showing me about my own inner script? The alchemical change, stopping the fight against the reflection. This is the definition of struggle, effort, and frustration. It is a guaranteed path to exhaustion because energy is wasted on the effect, not on the cause. The alchemical change, the turning point of the conscious creator, occurs at the moment he makes the radical decision to turn his back on the mirror. We stop obsessing over the external world, and we direct all our attention, all our power, all our intention to the only place where true change is possible, the origin of the image, to our own inner state. The initiate knows that his only job is not to do anything in the world. His only job is to change the movie that is projected in his mind, to polish the lens of his perception. And he has an unshakable faith that, if he performs this inner work diligently, the mirror by law must change its reflection. It is not a hope, it is a certainty. The mirror is not our judge, it is our greatest teacher, our most honest partner in the game of creation. It is not there to punish us, but to reveal to us. It shows us, without fail, where our true work lies. The workshop of the reflection master, integrated practices. The initiate in the secrets, faced with an unwanted reflection, does not lament. He does not blame. He retreats to the silent workshop of his consciousness and gets to work. His work is not one of physical effort, but of a deep self-inquiry and deliberate reprogramming. One of the most fundamental practices in this workshop is the correspondence journal. The master, at the end of his day, or when faced with a challenge, takes his journal not to complain about circumstances, but to decipher them. He describes the external event, the reflection, with an almost scientific objectivity. And then he asks the sacred question, if this external situation were a perfect mirror of my inner state, what belief, what feeling, what story within me would it be reflecting? Imagine someone whose constant reflection is a lack of recognition at work. In his journal, he does not write, "My boss is ungrateful." He writes, "External reflection. I have completed an important project and have not received any recognition." And then the inquiry begins. What is the internal cause of this reflection? Perhaps it reflects my own belief that I am not good enough, my own inability to recognize my own worth. Perhaps it reflects my fear of becoming visible, and for that reason I attract situations where I remain invisible. Or perhaps it reflects my own stinginess in giving recognition to others. This process of honest self-inquiry is the first step to identifying the movie that needs to be changed. Once the internal image to be changed has been identified, the master practices the as-if protocol. He dedicates himself to embodying the inner state that corresponds to the external reality he desires. He does not wait for the reflection to change to feel different. He feels different so that the reflection will change. If he wishes to be recognized, he does not beg for recognition. He enters his mental workshop and dresses in the garment of recognition. For 15 minutes a day, He deliberately cultivates the feeling of already being valued, competent, and successful. He walks like that person. He talks like that person. He feels the calm and security of that person in his own body. He is creating the internal cause, the new image, that the mirror must eventually reflect. Finally, the initiate learns to read every small reflection of his day as a message, as a personal oracle. He transforms the world from a series of random events into a constant and meaningful dialogue. If someone is unexpectedly kind, he does not consider it a coincidence. He recognizes it as a reflection of the kindness he has been cultivating in his own heart, and he thanks the mirror. If he faces a frustrating setback, he does not see it as bad luck. He sees it as an invitation from the mirror to examine the frustration or resistance that may be within himself. Every moment becomes an opportunity to calibrate the image he is projecting. You are no longer a victim of the world. You are its origin. You have learned the second great law, the one that places you at the center of your own universe. Chapter 3. The Field of All Possibilities. Our everyday experience presents us with a world of solid and separate objects. We touch a table and feel it to be unchangeable. We see our body and perceive it as a well-defined physical entity. We believe that reality is made up of things. This is the worldview of Isaac Newton's classical physics, a universe that functions like a great clockwork mechanism, predictable, objective, and fundamentally material. This view, although useful for building bridges and launching rockets into space, is an illusion. It is a superficial perception of reality, like judging the ocean only by the foam on its waves. At the beginning of the 20th century, a group of pioneer physicists armed with an insatiable curiosity decided to look beyond the surface. They traveled to the subatomic realm, to the heart of the atom, and what they found shattered our understanding of reality forever. They discovered that the atom, the supposed brick of matter, is 99.99999% empty space, and that the particles that compose it, electrons, protons, quarks, were not, as was believed, small, solid marbles. They weren't things at all. They sometimes behaved as particles and sometimes as waves. They did not have a fixed location until they were observed. The fundamental truth that quantum physics revealed is this: the universe is not made of matter. It is made of energy. And that energy is not solid. It is a vibrant field of potentiality. The solidity we perceive is an illusion created by the speed of that vibration, in the same way that the blades of a moving fan seem like a solid disk. You do not live in a universe of objects. You live in an ocean of energy. The quantum field, the womb of creation. Physicists call this ocean of energy the quantum field, or the unified field. Mystics throughout history have given it other names: the ether, the mind of God, the womb of creation. The name doesn't matter. The concept is the same. This field is the primordial substance from which everything emerges. It is a field of infinite potentiality. It contains as a latent possibility every reality that has existed, that exists and that will exist. The possibility of your illness and the possibility of your perfect healing coexist as two waves in this field. The possibility of your financial ruin and that of your immense wealth coexist in the same field. The version of you that is a victim and the version of you that is a master creator coexist right now as vibrational potentials in this ocean of existence. The universe is not a book with a single story. It is an infinite library that contains all possible stories. But if all possibilities already exist, what determines which of them manifests in our three-dimensional experience? What is it that turns a probability wave into an experience particle? Here we come to the most disconcerting and, at the same time, most empowering discovery of all science: the observer effect. The famous double-slit experiment proved this principle in an irrefutable way. When physicists fired electrons, particles, at a screen, without observing them, the electrons behaved like waves, creating an interference pattern. They existed in a state of potentiality. But the moment they turned on a detector to observe which of the slits they passed through, the behavior of reality changed instantly. The electrons stopped being waves and became defined particles, creating a completely different pattern. The implication of this is so profound that it shakes the foundations of our worldview. The simple act of consciousness, the act of observing, is not a passive act. It is a creative act. Consciousness does not see reality, it participates in its creation. It is the factor that collapses the infinite potentiality of the field into a defined experience. The physicist John Archibald Wheeler called it a participatory universe. The universe, he said, does not exist out there independent of us. We are inextricably part of it. We are the shapers and the creators. The collapse of the wave in your life. This is not a simple laboratory curiosity. It is the law that governs your life at this very moment. The universe of your personal experience is a quantum field of infinite possibilities, and your consciousness, through the lens of your beliefs and the vibration of your feelings, is the observer that is constantly collapsing those possibilities into the reality you experience. When you wake up in the morning and your first thought, your first belief, is today is going to be a difficult day, you are acting as the detector in the double slit. You are directing the focus of your consciousness, charged with the energy of that belief, toward the probability wave of the difficult day. And the quantum field, which does not judge, obeys your observation. It collapses that potentiality into your reality. Throughout the day, your perceptual filter will be in charge of showing you all the evidence that confirms your original observation. When, on the contrary, you wake up and, despite the circumstances, deliberately choose to adopt the perception that today is a day full of wonderful opportunities, you are directing your consciousness toward a different probability wave, and the field, with the same impersonality, begins to collapse that reality for you. You are not thinking positive. You are performing an act of quantum physics. You are selecting a reality from the infinite menu of possibilities through the power of your focused perception. You are the field. We have talked about the field as if it were something out there, and you as the observer who looks at it. But the final secret, the revelation that dissolves the last boundary of separation, is this: you are not separate from the field. You are the field. Your body is not a solid object. It is an incredibly dense and complex field of vibrating energy, a galaxy of billions of dancing atoms. And this personal field does not end at the boundaries of your skin. It radiates outward, constantly interacting with the larger field. You are not an observer looking at the ocean. You are a wave in the ocean. You are a focal point of consciousness within the field, experiencing itself and shaping reality around it from the inside out. If your state is one of chaos and fear, your personal field is incoherent. And this incoherence is reflected as chaos and fear in the mirror of your life. If your state is one of peace and coherence, your personal field is harmonious, and this harmony is reflected as peace and synchronicity in your life. You can no longer see yourself as a victim of an external universe. You must accept the truth of your power. You are a center of creation in the heart. Secondary. Two people can perform the exact same external action, but if they perform it from opposite internal states, they will get radically different results. Imagine two people making the same sales call. The first makes it from the state of scarcity. His belief is, I need this sale to survive. His feeling is anxiety. His mental movie is one of rejection. Although his words may be perfect, his vibration of need and fear travels through the phone and is subconsciously perceived by the client, who feels an inexplicable distrust and rejects the offer. The second person makes the same call with the same script, but from the state of abundance. His belief is, I am here to offer immense value, and if this client sees it, fantastic. If not, there are infinite other opportunities. His feeling is one of calm, detachment, and service. His vibration of confidence and non-need is magnetic. The client feels this security and is attracted to accepting the offer. The action was the same. The state was different. The result was different. Your state of being is the cause. Your action is simply the channel through which that cause is expressed. The garment of the soul, how we wear our states. A state is not something that happens to us by accident, like the weather. It is something that, consciously or unconsciously, we put on each morning upon waking. A state is the garment of the soul. Imagine that your pure consciousness, your true self, is like a naked, formless actor. And each state, the state of the victim, the state of the creator, the state of scarcity, the state of abundance, is a complete costume, in a vast and infinite wardrobe. Each costume comes with its own script, its own gestures, its own way of speaking and feeling. The problem is that most of us have lived as amnesiac actors. At birth, we were given a costume, often the same worn-out costume of our parents, and we put it on without question. Perhaps it was the garment of anxiety, or of constant struggle, or of not being enough. And we have worn this same costume for so long that we have forgotten it is a costume. We believe it is our skin. When we try to change our life through simple action, it is as if the actor, dressed in the heavy and dark cloak of the victim, tries to play a scene of triumph and joy. It is not believable. His gestures are forced. His voice lacks conviction. The audience, the universe, is not fooled. It responds to the truth of the garment, not the falsehood of the field does not respond to a cold, analytical gaze. It responds to a burning heart. Emotion is the color and intensity of the light you project. The fundamental practice here is the heart coherence ritual. The initiate knows that his heart is the true sun of his system, emitting the electromagnetic field that organizes his biology and his reality. Several times a day, he takes 5 minutes to tune his field. He closes his eyes. He brings his attention to the center of his chest, and he begins to breathe slowly and rhythmically, imagining that the air enters and leaves through his heart. While breathing, he deliberately evokes a high-vibration emotion. The most powerful of all, the one that contains the signature of creation itself, is gratitude. He does not think about gratitude. He feels it. He remembers a moment of deep appreciation. He feels that warmth expanding in his chest. By combining coherent breathing with elevated emotion, the initiate is doing something miraculous. He is transforming the signal he emits from an incoherent chaos to a perfect and harmonious sine wave. He is singing the song that the quantum field understands perfectly. He is tuning his being to the frequency of his wish fulfilled. The initiate can also use sound as a tuning tool. He knows that sound is organized vibration. The use of mantras, chants, or simply humming makes the cells of his body physically vibrate at a new frequency, helping to dissolve the energetic patterns of fear and disease. The third practice, surrender to the field. Finally, the master performs the most paradoxical and powerful act of all. After having established his observation with impeccable clarity and having tuned his vibration with perfect coherence, he does something that terrifies the ego. He lets go of control. He surrenders to the field. The initiate understands that his conscious mind, with its linear logic, is a tool that is too limited to be able to orchestrate the infinite complexity of manifestation. Trying to control the how and the when is like a single drop of water trying to direct the ocean's tide. Surrender is not passivity. It is the supreme act of faith. It is the transfer of the task from the mid-level manager, the conscious mind, to the CEO of infinite intelligence, the subconscious mind and the quantum field. The practice is that of conscious release. After his intention ritual, the master visualizes his desire as a sphere of bright light, and then, with an exhalation, he lets it go. He hands it over to the universe with absolute confidence, saying inwardly, "It is done. I trust the process. I am open to receiving this or something better in the most elevated way for the good of all." By letting go of the anxious need to control the outcome, he dissolves resistance. He creates a void that the intelligence of the universe rushes to fill, often in ways much more miraculous and elegant than his small mind could have conceived. You are no longer a solid object in a universe of solid objects. You are a vibrant field of consciousness in an infinite ocean of potential. Your attention is the chisel, your emotion is the force, and the quantum field is the clay. Chapter 4. The currency of creation, the state of being. Our culture has taught us that the currency of creation is action. If you want something, work hard for it. We have become a civilization of doers, believing that the amount of our effort will determine the quality of our results. But as we have already begun to glimpse, this is a half-truth, a truth from a lower level of consciousness. You have seen people who work tirelessly and barely survive, and others who seem to attract success with effortless grace. Clearly, action alone cannot be the first cause. Action is an effect, not a cause. So, what is the true currency? The metaphysical secret that changes everything is this. The currency of the universe is not what you do, it's what you are. The currency of creation is your state of being. Defining the state of being. What is a state of being? A state is not a fleeting emotion, like a flash of joy or a moment of anger. It's not a fleeting thought. A state of being or state of consciousness is your vibrational home. It is your emotional and psychological center of gravity. It is the sum total of your dominant beliefs and feelings, the underlying feeling that accompanies you throughout the day and to which, by habit, you always return. A state is a dwelling of consciousness. You can visit the state of peace for a few moments in a meditation, but if your habitual home is the state of anxiety, you will always return to it. A state is an assumed identity. It's not just something you feel, it's something you are in that moment. To better understand it, we can break down a state into its three main components. Root beliefs. These are the invisible foundations of the state. They are the fundamental assumptions about yourself and the world that you hold as truth. For example, the victim state is built on beliefs like, life is unfair, people always hurt me, and I have no power to change things. Dominant feelings. These are the walls and ceiling of the dwelling. They are the emotional texture that permeates the state. The victim state feels like resentment, self-pity, frustration, and powerlessness. Imaginary scenes. These are the movies that are constantly projected inside that dwelling to reinforce its reality. A person in the victim state replays in their imagination in a never-ending loop scenes of past injustices and rehearses possible future betrayals. Imagine these states as different countries on the map of consciousness. There is the country of scarcity, with its climate of anxiety and its landscapes of lack. There is the country of gratitude, with its climate of peace and its landscapes of beauty. And there is the country of resentment, with its toxic atmosphere and its bitter inhabitants. You are not your actions. You are the state you habitually occupy. You are the citizen of the country in which you have chosen unconsciously to reside. The physics of how states create reality. The law of reflection states that your outer world is a mirror of your inner world. Now we can refine that law. Your outer world is a mirror of your dominant state of being. The mechanism is vibrational resonance. Your state of being is a tuning fork that vibrates at a specific and constant frequency. The quantum field, the universe, which is an ocean of all possible frequencies, cannot help but resonate with your signal. It attracts to you by an impersonal law of physics the people, the circumstances, and the events that vibrate at the same frequency as your state. If you dwell in the state of anxiety, your tuning fork is emitting a frequency of chaos and anticipation of danger. The universe, upon receiving this signal, will reflect back situations that justify your anxiety, setbacks, conflicts, alarming news. If you dwell in the state of confidence, your tuning fork emits a frequency of calm, faith, and security. The universe responds by reflecting situations that validate that confidence, synchronicities, unexpected solutions, fortunate encounters. This is where the powerlessness of simple action is revealed. Action is secondary. Two people can perform the exact same external action, but if they perform it from opposite internal states, they will get radically different results. Imagine two people making the same sales call. The first makes it from the state of scarcity. His belief is, I need this sale to survive. His feeling is anxiety. His mental movie is one of rejection. Although his words may be perfect, his vibration of need and fear travels through the phone and is subconsciously perceived by the client, who feels an inexplicable distrust and rejects the offer. The second person makes the same call with the same script, but from the state of abundance. His belief is, I am here to offer immense value, and if this client sees it, fantastic. If not, there are infinite other opportunities. His feeling is one of calm, detachment, and service. His vibration of confidence and non-need is magnetic. The client feels this security and is attracted to accepting the offer. The action was the same. The state was different. The result was different. Your state of being is the cause. Your action is simply the channel through which that cause is expressed. The garment of the soul. How we wear our states. A state is not something that happens to us by accident, like the weather. It is something that, consciously or unconsciously, we put on each morning upon waking. A state is the garment of the soul. Imagine that your pure consciousness, your true self, is like a naked, formless actor. And each state, the state of the victim, the state of the creator, the state of scarcity, the state of abundance, is a complete costume in a vast and infinite wardrobe. Each costume comes with its own script, its own gestures, its own way of speaking and feeling. The problem is that most of us have lived as amnesiac actors. At birth we were given a costume, often the same worn-out costume of our parents, and we put it on without question. Perhaps it was the garment of anxiety, or of constant struggle, or of not being enough. And we have worn this same costume for so long that we have forgotten it is a costume. We believe it is our skin. When we try to change our life through simple action, it is as if the actor, dressed in the heavy and dark cloak of the victim, tries to play a scene of triumph and joy. It is not believable. His gestures are forced. His voice lacks conviction. The audience, the universe, is not fooled. It responds to the truth of the garment, not the falsehood of the performance. The real change, the true transformation, does not happen by changing actions. It happens in the dressing room of the soul. It happens when you have the courage to take off the old, frayed costume that no longer serves you, to stand naked for a moment in the vulnerability of not knowing, and to deliberately choose a new garment from your infinite wardrobe, the wardrobe of infinite states. Here we come to one of the most liberating ideas of all metaphysics, one that completely dissolves the need for effort and time. The truth is this: you don't have to create a new state. All possible states already exist. Imagine your consciousness as a vast and infinite wardrobe. In this wardrobe, perfectly crafted, hangs the costume of every imaginable state. There is the costume of the millionaire, with its fabric of security and its buttons of freedom. There is the costume of the healer, woven with threads of compassion and peace. There is the costume of the lover, with its texture of wholeness and connection. There is also the costume of the beggar, the sick, the victim. Every possible human state of being is a costume, a garment of the soul that already exists as a potentiality in universal consciousness. Your free will does not reside in your ability to create new costumes, but in your ability to choose which of them you are going to wear. The process of transformation is not an act of laborious construction, but an act of conscious selection. You look at your life. You diagnose the frayed costume you have been wearing out of habit, the costume of scarcity. Then you enter your inner wardrobe. You look for the costume you want to inhabit, the costume of abundance. And through imagination and assumption, you take off the old one and put on the new one. This process can be challenging. The old costume is familiar. It is comfortable in its misery. Taking off a garment you have worn for 40 years feels like tearing off your skin. There is a moment of nakedness, of vulnerability, where you are neither the old you nor the new you. This is the threshold that most people do not dare to cross. But if you have the courage to persist, to keep wearing your new garment in your imagination until it feels natural, a moment will come when the transition is complete. The new state will become your new home, and the world, your faithful mirror, will begin to bring you the experiences, the people, and the opportunities that correspond to the new and magnificent garment you have chosen to wear. The workshop of the Creator, integrated practices. The initiate in the secrets does not leave this process to chance. He becomes a master of the art of conscious dressing. The first practice is the conscious undressing. The master knows he cannot put on a new suit over an old, dirty one. First, he must undress. This is the practice of non-judgmental observation we have already explored. The initiate becomes aware of the old, heavy cloak he is wearing. He does not fight it. He simply observes it. He feels its rough texture, its weight on his shoulders. He recognizes its smell of fear or resentment. This act of loving awareness is what loosens the suit, what allows it to be removed. Once naked in the stillness of his consciousness, the master enters the imaginal fitting room to choose his new garment. This is the practice of visualization, not as a fantasy, but as an act of trying on the new identity. He doesn't just look at the costume of confidence, he tries it on in his imagination. He feels the soft fabric of calm on his skin. He feels the impeccable cut of authority on his shoulders. He walks back and forth in the fitting room, familiarizing himself with the sensation until the suit feels his. Finally, once the suit is chosen, the master leaves the fitting room and wears it out into the world, even if the mirror of reality still reflects his old clothes. And here begins the most important practice: persistence in the new garment through a strict mental diet. The mental diet is the act of refusing to put on the old suit again. When a thought of doubt or fear arises, the temptation to return to the old garment, the master doesn't put it on. With an act of will, he returns to the feeling, to the texture of the new garment he has chosen. The power to create your reality is not the ability to weave a new destiny from scratch. It is the wisdom of knowing that all destinies are already woven, waiting in the wardrobe of your soul. Your life is a divine masquerade, and the forbidden secret is this: you are the only one who has the power to choose your own costume. Stop wearing the beggar's garment that was handed to you. Enter your wardrobe, and dress like the king, like the queen you have always been. Chapter 5. The first secret, the power of assumption. This is perhaps the simplest, most direct and most misunderstood technique in all of metaphysics. Its power is so immense that the logical mind, trained in the paradigm of effort and lack, often rebels against it. What is it to assume? To assume is not to wait. To assume is not to desire. To assume is not to think positive. To assume is the radical and sovereign act of accepting your desire as an already accomplished fact in the only place where reality is created, your own consciousness. It is the art of feeling and living in your inner world from the end. It is the act of giving your subconscious mind not the image of a future desire, but the sensation of a present memory. The untrained mind operates under the tyranny of the five senses. It believes that reality is what it can see, hear, and touch. It lives in a prison of external evidence. If its senses tell it that it is poor, then it believes it is poor. The initiate in metaphysical secrets learns to perform a radical inversion of this process. He learns to be loyal, not to the evidence of his senses, which is only a reflection of the past, but to the truth of his imagination, which is the cause of the future. The paradox of the lie, being loyal to the invisible. The first and greatest barrier that the student of this principle encounters is the voice of the inner critic that shouts, "But this is a lie, I'm pretending, I'm not rich, how can I feel rich? I'm not healthy, how can I feel healthy?" This objection is born from a deep misunderstanding of the nature of reality. What is a lie? A lie is a statement that contradicts the facts. But what are the real facts? The facts of the world of shadows, the world of effects that your senses show you, or the facts of the world of light, the world of consciousness, which is the cause of those shadows. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are not lying. You are performing the most truthful act of all. You are being loyal to the reality you have chosen to create on the causal plane. You are declaring your loyalty to the invisible over the visible. It is an act of faith, not in an external God, but in the creative power of your own consciousness. To understand it better, let's use the metaphor of the method actor. A method actor, to play a king, does not pretend to be a king. He doesn't just learn the lines and put on a costume. He does deep inner work. He searches his own psyche for the qualities of nobility, of authority, of responsibility. And then he inhabits that state. He begins to think like the king, to feel like the king, to walk like the king. He immerses himself so deeply in the assumption of the character that, for a time, he is the king. And as a result, his performance is magnetic, convincing, real. In the same way, your job as a creator is to become a method actor of your ideal self. You don't force yourself to be the confident person you want to be. In the stillness of your mind, you find the seed of confidence that already exists in you, and you cultivate it. You ask yourself, how would confidence feel in my body? And then you embody that feeling. You don't pretend to be prosperous. You assume the state of the person for whom abundance is their natural state. You feel the calm, the freedom, and the generosity of that state. The key is that you are not trying to trick the universe. You are convincing yourself. your own deep subconscious mind. And once your subconscious is convinced, once it accepts your new state as your true identity, the manifestation in the external world becomes inevitable and automatic. The inevitability of the reflection, the faithful servant. Your subconscious mind is a perfect servant. It has no sense of humor or capacity for judgment. It is absolutely literal. Its only function is to take the belief, the assumption that you hold as truth and materialize it. If you persistently assume and feel the state of anxiety, your subconscious will take that command and orchestrate a reality that gives you reasons to be anxious. If you persistently assume and feel the state of gratitude, your subconscious will take that command and organize a reality that gives you more reasons to be grateful. Assumption is the cause. The reflection in the mirror of your life is the effect. There is no way for this law to fail, just as there is no way for the law of gravity to fail. The only possible point of failure is in our own inability to persist in the assumption. The universe, the external world, is nothing more than clay, and the sustained assumption, the feeling of your wish fulfilled, is the mold. The clay has no choice but to take the form of the mold into which it is poured. Therefore, the Creator's job is not to do anything in the external world. His only job is to create the mold, the assumption within him, and to remain in it until the clay of reality has solidified. The mechanics of assumption, the art of first-person immersion. The secret lies in a crucial distinction, one that is often overlooked: the difference between third-person visualization and first-person assumption. Third-person visualization is the act of watching a movie of yourself. You see yourself from the outside, like a spectator achieving your goal. You see your avatar succeeding, receiving the money, finding love. This practice can be inspiring, but it is fundamentally flawed because it maintains the separation. There is a you here, observing, and a you there, experiencing. You are still in the position of the one who desires, not the one who possesses. First-person assumption, the true art of the Creator, is radically different. You don't watch a movie. You are inside the movie. You don't observe the scene. You experience it. The initiate does not see himself receiving the money. He feels the texture of the bill in his hand. He does not imagine himself being hugged. He feels the warmth and pressure of the hug on his own body. He does not see himself driving the new car. He feels his hands on the steering wheel and sees the world pass through his own eyes. This change in perspective, from being the spectator to being the actor, is what tricks the subconscious. Because when you experience a scene in the first person with all the sensory details you can evoke, your nervous system cannot distinguish it from physical reality. For your brain, the imaginary act is a real fact. You have created a memory of the future. The initiate also knows that the scene he must build in his imagination is not the moment of achievement, but the one that comes right after. The moment of achievement is often charged with an excitement that is difficult to sustain. The most powerful and natural state is the one that follows it, one of calm, of relief, of serene satisfaction. If the desire is to heal from a disease, the scene is not the moment the doctor gives the news. It is the quiet conversation with a loved one that same night, where you say with a sigh of relief, "It's amazing to feel so well again." If the desire is prosperity, the scene is not winning the lottery. It is the mundane act a week later of paying a bill, not with anxiety, but with a sense of complete and boring normalcy, because money is no longer a problem. The key is to find a short, simple scene that, if it were to happen, would naturally imply that your wish is already a fact, and then to inhabit it from within, feeling the calm emotion that this is now your normal life. The workshop of the method actor, integrated practices. The initiate in this secret does not leave his practice to chance. He becomes a methodical director and actor of his own inner work, rehearsing his new role until it becomes his second nature. The first practice is that of writing the sensory script. The master does not enter the theater of his mind without a script. He takes his journal and, with the precision of a screenwriter, answers the Creator's questions. He asks himself, what is the simplest and most natural scene that would imply my wish is already a fact? What would I see exactly through my own eyes? What would I hear? What would I touch? And above all, what is the dominant feeling, the background emotion that permeates that scene. He writes this script, not as a story, but as a set of sensory instructions for his own consciousness. The second and most important of the practices is the nightly rehearsal. The master knows that the most powerful portal for assumption is the drowsy state, that state of daydreaming between waking and sleeping where the guardian of the logical mind lowers its defenses. Every night he lies down, relaxes his body completely, and once he feels that reason is starting to doze off, the real work begins. He enters his scene in the first person. He feels the chair he is sitting in his new office. He hears his friend's congratulation. He feels the warmth of the sun on his skin in that dream location. And then he repeats this short movie, this memory of the future, over and over. He replays it in a gentle, passive loop, not with effort but with a drowsy acceptance. His goal is not to force anything, but simply to familiarize himself with the feeling of his new reality until the feeling of reality completely floods him. And then he falls asleep. He falls asleep in the midst of his wish fulfilled, in his new home, in his new state of being. This act of impregnating the subconscious mind just before sleep is the most potent act of manifestation that exists. You are handing your faithful servant the finished blueprint just before he begins his 8-hour shift of building your world. Finally, the assumption does not end when we open our eyes. The master practices the art of carrying the feeling of his nightly scene into his daily life. Throughout the day, in the midst of his activities, he asks himself, how would the person who last night in his imagination already achieved his goal walk, talk, and make decisions? And he acts from that serene confidence. He is not pretending. He is being loyal to his true reality, to the reality he has chosen on the plane of consciousness, refusing to be hypnotized by the temporary shadow of his current circumstances. The power of assumption is the first and greatest of the metaphysical secrets. It is the discovery that you don't have to change the world to get what you want. You have to change the you who experiences it. Stop desiring, stop waiting, stop asking. Choose the state of your wish fulfilled, dress yourself in its feeling, and walk in that assumption. The mirror of the world will have no choice but to reflect your new and magnificent identity. Chapter 6, the second secret, the mental diet. You have traveled in the theater of your mind to the state of your wish fulfilled. You have dressed it in the fabric of sensory reality, and you have impregnated it with the feeling that it is already a fact. You have fallen asleep in your new home. And then you open your eyes, and the mirror of the world, implacable in its honesty, gives you back the reflection of your old reality. The bank account shows the same number. The doctor's diagnosis has not changed. The empty chair at your table is still empty. Your 5 senses, like a chorus of detractors, rise up to shout that your imaginary act was nothing more than a fantasy, a brief and sweet self-deception. It is at this moment, in the apparent gap between your transformed inner world and your unchanged outer world, that the most important battle of all is fought. It is the test of faith. It is here that the dreamer gives up and the creator persists. And to persist, the creator must master the second metaphysical secret, the power of the mental diet. If assumption is the act of planting the seed, the mental diet is the art of tending the soil during the period of gestation. It is the discipline that protects the delicate new creation from being choked by the weeds of old programming. The great test of faith, the tyranny of the senses. To understand the need for a mental diet, we must first recognize the nature of our adversary. And the adversary is not the world. It is our own addiction to the evidence of our 5 senses. We have been programmed, since birth, to believe that reality is what we can see, hear, touch, smell, and taste, and our senses are the jailers of our perceptual prison. They present us with a world of solid and unchangeable facts. The fact is that you have no money. The fact is that you are alone. The fact is that you are sick. The initiate in metaphysical secrets learns a radical truth. The senses do not report on reality. They report on the past. What your senses perceive today is not a truth about your present or your future. It is simply the reflection, the harvest, of the states of consciousness you inhabited yesterday, last week, last year. Looking at your bank account to determine your wealth is like looking at the dead harvest of autumn to predict the harvest of the next spring. The mental diet is the act of breaking this hypnosis of the senses. It is the conscious vow to be more loyal to the truth of your inner world, the new seed you have planted, than to the shadow of the outer world. It is an act of faith, not in an external God, but in the unchangeable law of creation that says your assumption, if persisted in, must manifest. Defining the mental diet, discipline, not suppression. It is crucial to understand what the mental diet is not, in order to practice it correctly. It is not superficial positive thinking. It is not about putting a layer of pink paint on a rotten wall. It is not the act of forcing a smile while your inside is screaming in pain. It is not denying the facts of your current reality. It is denying them their final power. It is recognizing them as temporary shadows, not as permanent truths. It is not thought suppression. You cannot not think a thought. The attempt to suppress a negative thought by force is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It requires immense effort, and the moment you let your guard down, the ball jumps to the surface with more force than before. Fighting a thought gives it your energy and makes it stronger. So what is the mental diet? It is the practice of selective attention. It is the art of the gardener. The gardener does not spend the day shouting at the weeds. He simply, with a disciplined calm, every time he sees a weed, a thought that contradicts his assumption, he withdraws his attention from it and places it back on the flower he wishes to cultivate, the feeling of his wish fulfilled. The mental diet is a practice of emotional discipline. It is the conscious choice to deny yourself the perverse and addictive pleasure of worry, of complaint, of self-pity. These negative emotions are like junk food for the soul. They offer a brief comfort, an instant gratification for the victim's ego, but in the long run they poison your system and destroy your creation. To be on a mental diet is to refuse to consume this poison. And ultimately, the mental diet is an act of unshakable loyalty. It is being faithful to your inner vision, to your ideal self, in the same way that a mother is faithful to the child growing in her womb, even if she cannot yet see it. The neuroscience of the mental diet. This process is not just a mystical philosophy, it is a practice of deliberate neuroplasticity. As we have seen, your old states of being are neural highways paved by decades of mental traffic. Your new assumption is a small trail that you have just started to blaze in the jungle. Every time you allow your mind to get entangled in an old thought of doubt or fear, you are driving your car on the old highway, reinforcing its pavement and making it easier to go down again. Every time, in the midst of doubt, you withdraw your attention from it and deliberately return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are taking a machete to the new trail. You are making it a little wider, a little clearer. The external manifestation occurs at the tipping point, when the new trail has become the new highway, when the new state feels more natural, more real than the old one. The mental diet is the daily construction work that makes this transition possible. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are literally rewiring your brain to correspond with a new reality. The first practice, the fast of doubt. The guardian's first act is to declare a fast from the evidence of the five senses. During the gestation period of his desire, he refuses to constantly look to the external world for proof that his manifestation is arriving. This anxious search for signs is in itself an act of doubt. It is the vibration of "it hasn't arrived yet." It is like the gardener who digs up the seed every 5 minutes to see if it is growing. The master understands that the only proof he needs is the quality of his inner feeling. If he can, at will, enter the feeling of his wish fulfilled, he has found the only evidence that matters. That is the true reality. The external world is just a shadow that takes a little while to catch up. The initiate, therefore, deliberately limits his exposure to the news of his old reality. If his goal is prosperity, he avoids obsessively checking his bank account. If his goal is health, he avoids obsessively searching for his symptoms on the internet. Not out of denial, but out of strategic wisdom. He is protecting his seed from the frost of doubt. The second practice, the technique of sovereign indifference. Your most powerful weapon against negative thoughts is not fighting. It is indifference. When a thought of doubt or fear, a fact of your current reality, knocks on the door of your consciousness, do not try to argue with it. Do not try to reason. By doing so, you are giving it your energy and your credibility. Instead, the initiate treats it like an unwelcome street vendor. Observe. He sees it coming from the distance of his witness consciousness. Here comes the thought of this is not going to work. Acknowledge. He acknowledges it without emotion. He does not judge it, he simply names it. Withdraw attention. And then he simply closes the door in its face. Not with anger, but with a calm and sovereign indifference. He withdraws his attention from it and, immediately and deliberately, places it back on the feeling of his wish fulfilled. The thought of fear says, look, the bill has arrived. Your response is not panic, but an inner calm that says, thank you for the information, while you feel the serene gratitude of the person who knows that all their resources are unlimited. You are training your mind to stop being a reactive leaf and become an unmovable rock of faith. The third practice, the alchemical art of revision. This is one of Neville Goddard's most profound and transformative techniques. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, the day hits us. We have an argument, we receive bad news, we make a mistake. At the end of the day, we feel out of our desired state, as if we had broken the diet. Revision is the act of entering your mental editing workshop and rewriting the scene. It is the art of not allowing the sun to set on your anger or your disappointment. The protocol. Before sleeping, in your drowsy state, review the events of the day. Identify the scene that disturbed you and took you out of your state. Now in your imagination, rewrite it. Replay it the way you would have liked it to happen. If you had an argument, rewrite it as a harmonious and understanding conversation. Hear the words of forgiveness. Feel the hug of reconciliation. If you received bad news, rewrite it by receiving the news you desired. Feel the relief and the joy. If you made a mistake, rewrite it by acting with perfect wisdom and competence. Feel the pride of a job well done. Live this revised scene with all the feeling you can muster, over and over again until it feels like the true memory. What does this do? On a subconscious level, you are replacing a memory of failure with one of success. You are cleansing the negative energy of the day, and you go to sleep having planted a seed of harmony. You cannot change the factual past, but you can change its impact on your present, ensuring that it does not become a poisonous seed for your future. The state of Sabbath, the Creator's rest. How long should you persist in your mental diet? For how many days should you maintain this discipline? The answer is, until it no longer feels like an effort, until the new state becomes your natural state, your home. Our time comes when you no longer have to try to feel prosperous or loved. You simply feel that way. The old state of scarcity or loneliness begins to feel strange, alien, like a suit that no longer fits you. This is the moment of quiet certainty. It is a state of peace and inner knowing. You have so deeply impregnated your subconscious with the new belief that manifestation is now inevitable. Neville called this state the Sabbath. It is the seventh day of creation, the day of rest. You have completed your creative work in the imagination, and now you rest in faith, with a quiet and absolute confidence, knowing that what you have created in the invisible world must by law appear in the visible world. There is nothing more to do. Just observe with serene gratitude as your new reality unfolds before you. Entering the Sabbath is the culmination of the mental diet. It is the proof that the new seed has taken such deep roots that it no longer needs the constant protection of the gardener. Persistence is not a struggle, it is a loyalty. It is being faithful to your soul's vision, even when the armies of doubt and the evidence of the senses try to convince you to give up. It is the silent power of holding a note in the midst of a cacophony until the entire orchestra of the universe is forced to tune itself to your new song. You have learned the art of assumption, of planting the seed. And now you have learned the art of the mental diet, of protecting that seed until it sprouts. You have completed the fundamental part of your training. In the next chapters, we will take this knowledge and apply it like a laser in the great arenas of life. Chapter 7. The Third Secret, the Fertile Silence. For some reason, the word surrender has been demonized. We equate it with defeat, weakness, passivity, the act of giving up. But in metaphysics, surrender has nothing to do with defeat. It is, in fact, the act of supreme power. It is the final transition from the consciousness of the doer to that of the creator. Surrender in this context is not a passive resignation. It is an active trust. It is not ceasing to act. It is ceasing to force. It is the act of letting go of your small, limited, egoic control to allow an infinitely greater and wiser intelligence, that of the universe, to take the reins and orchestrate the outcome in a way that your logical mind could never conceive. Let's remember the metaphor of the gardener. The wise gardener chooses the seed, the assumption. He prepares the ground and protects it from weeds, the mental diet. And once he has done his part, what does he do? He surrenders. He trusts in the immutable laws of nature. He trusts the sun, the rain, and the inherent intelligence of the seed itself to do their work. He does not dig up the seed every day to see if it is growing. He does not try to open it with his hands to help it germinate. He knows that such interference, born of impatience and lack of faith, can only destroy the creation. Your desire is that seed. Your subconscious mind and the quantum field are the fertile ground and the laws of nature. Your only job is to plant and care, and then surrender to the process. The tyranny of how, the greatest obstacle to manifestation. The biggest barrier to this act of surrender is our conscious mind's obsession with the how. Once we have set our intention, the ego, with its insatiable need for control, immediately starts to anxiously ask, but how is it going to happen? What's the plan? What are the steps? What if it doesn't work? The conscious mind is a brilliant tool for analysis, but it is a terrible master creator. Its only capacity is to build with the bricks of its past experience. It can only conceive of paths it already knows, solutions it has already seen. It cannot conceive of the miraculous, the synchronistic, the unexpected. When you obsess over the how, you are in essence telling the universe, I don't trust your intelligence, I don't trust your creativity. I am going to limit the infinite ways my desire could manifest to the few and well-trodden paths that my small logical mind can conceive. This need to control the how is born from a deep lack of faith and a fundamental fear. It is the vibration of doubt, and this vibration, as we already know, is a counter-command. It's like sending a letter to the universe with your order and immediately after sending another one cancelling it. The master of metaphysics understands that his job is to define the what with absolute clarity and to feel the why with unshakable passion. And then he completely hands over the how to the wisdom of the universe. He knows that the quantum field, having access to all variables, all people, all possibilities, can orchestrate the fastest, most elegant, and most harmonious path to his goal, a path that is often invisible to his limited vision. Imagine two entrepreneurs who want to manifest success for their new business. Both do the inner work of assumption. The first, operating from the ego, obsesses over the how. He creates a 100-page business plan, clings to it rigidly, and works 18 hours a day to force its fulfillment. When an unexpected opportunity that deviates from the plan appears, he rejects it. When a door closes, he tries to knock it down with force. His path is one of immense effort, constant struggle, and his energy of control and tension often repels partners and clients. The second, the initiate, defines his vision of success with clarity and feels the joy of his already prosperous business, and then he surrenders. Each day, instead of asking himself, how am I going to make this work, he asks, what is the next inspired step? And he listens. Maybe one day the impulse is to call an old friend, and that call leads him to an unexpected investor. Maybe another day he feels the impulse to do nothing but read, and in that book he finds the idea that revolutionizes his business model. He doesn't follow a rigid plan, he follows the current of synchronicity. His path is one of flow, of grace, and his energy of confidence and openness is magnetic. Both may achieve success, but one arrives exhausted, the other energized. One arrives by force, the other by flow. The nature of fertile silence. Surrender is not a state of passive, boring waiting. It is a state of fertile silence. It is a vibrant stillness, an active patience, a confident expectation. It is the state of the master hunter who waits in the forest. He is completely motionless, but every one of his senses is awake, alert, receptive. He is not anxious, he is not impatient. He simply waits with the certainty that, at the perfect moment, his prey will appear. This fertile silence is the Sabbath that Neville Goddard spoke of. It is the seventh day of creation, the day of rest. You have performed your creative work in the imagination. You have assumed your desire as a fact. And now you enter a state of mental and emotional rest. You rest in faith. You rest in the quiet certainty that what you have created in the invisible world is, at this very instant, moving through the fabric of space and time to manifest in your visible world. There is nothing more to do on the plane of intention. The spell has been cast. The seed has been planted. Now all that remains is to tend the garden and wait for the sprout to appear. The anatomy of true faith. True faith, the kind that fertile silence requires, is a state of being. It is a quiet, absolute knowing that resides at the center of your consciousness, a knowing that is independent of the evidence of the five senses. It is the unshakable certainty that the law of creation is infallible. Hope says, I have planted the seed, and I hope that the sun and rain will come so it can grow. Faith says, I have planted the seed. The sun and rain are the law. Growth is inevitable. This faith is not something you are born with. It is built. It is built through practice, through conscious experimentation. It is strengthened every time you perform an act of assumption in your imagination, and then see its corresponding reflection, no matter how small, in the mirror of your life. Every manifestation, every synchronicity is one more brick in the temple of your faith. Surrender, therefore, is not a leap into the void. It is the logical act of an engineer who, having built a bridge according to the exact laws of physics, trusts that the bridge will hold its weight. He doesn't have to hope it doesn't fall. He knows it won't fall, because he understands the law. The workshop of fertile silence integrated practices. The initiate does not leave this state of surrender to chance. He cultivates it with a subtle discipline, in the silent workshop of his own consciousness. The first practice is the ritual of handover. The master knows that the ego will not let go of control easily. Therefore, he performs a formal ceremony of power transfer. In his nightly meditation, after having performed his act of assumption, he visualizes his desire not as an image, but as a sphere of bright, perfect light. He holds this sphere in his imaginal hands. He feels its weight, its vibration, its reality. And then, with an act of deep humility and trust, he raises his hands and hands that sphere of light over to a higher intelligence, to the universal mind, to his higher self, to the intelligence of the quantum field. And as he does, he pronounces a decree of liberation. It is not a plea, it is a transfer. He says inwardly, Infinite intelligence of the universe, I have completed my work. I have created this blueprint in the only place I can, in my own consciousness. Now with absolute faith I hand over the how and the when to you. I trust in your wisdom to orchestrate its manifestation in the most perfect way. It is no longer my concern. It is done. This ritual is an act of psycho-magic of immense power. It gives the ego a concrete action to perform, handing over, which satisfies its need to do something, and at the same time it teaches it the art of letting go. The second practice is the synchronicity hunt. Once the initiate has let go of control, he does not become passive. He becomes an exquisitely attentive observer. He knows that the universe, now that it has the space to work, will begin to send him signals, to leave him breadcrumbs on the path. He keeps a synchronicity journal. He notes the meaningful coincidences, the song he heard, the conversation he overheard by chance, the book that fell open to a page. He doesn't overanalyze them. He simply receives them as a wink from the universe, as a confirmation that the spell is underway. This practice keeps him in a state of playful dialogue with reality and reinforces his faith. And the third and perhaps most important practice is the differentiation of inspired action from forced action. Surrender does not mean inaction. It means the end of action born from panic, anxiety, and the need to control. Forced action feels heavy, like a struggle, like something you should do. Inspired action, which is the universe's response, feels light, obvious, effortless. It is a sudden impulse that comes from a place of calm. I should call this person. I should go to this place. The master learns to wait for this impulse. He does not force movement. He spends his days tending his garden, maintaining his state of grateful faith. and when the inspired impulse arrives, he acts on it immediately and without hesitation. He knows that this is the next piece of the puzzle that the universe is handing him. It is the dance between being and doing. Fertile silence is the sacred space of gestation. It is the trust of the artist who, having planted the seed of his intention, allows the mystery of life to do its work, knowing that no amount of anxious effort can make a flower open before its time. Chapter 8. The Alchemy of Wealth. Before we begin, we must understand the nature of true alchemy. The medieval alchemist, as is popularly believed, did not simply seek to turn lead into gold to get rich. That is the superficial interpretation. The great work, the magnum opus, was a symbolic process. The lead was human consciousness in its base state, ignorant, heavy, reactive, dominated by fear. The gold was enlightened consciousness, wise, light, creative, unified with the source. The transmutation of the metal was an external reflection of an internal transmutation. In the same way, the alchemy of wealth is not about applying mental tricks to accumulate money. It is about a profound process of inner transmutation. It is about taking the lead of our poverty consciousness, and through the fire of consciousness and the application of universal principles, transmuting it into the gold of a prosperity consciousness. The money that appears in your bank account is simply the residue, the tangible proof that the inner alchemy has been a success. Deconstructing the base metals, poverty consciousness. To transmute lead, we must first understand its composition. Poverty consciousness, that state of being that projects a reality of scarcity and struggle, is composed of 4 toxic base metals. 1. The lead of scarcity. This is the heaviest metal, the foundation of the prison. It is the deep and often unconscious belief that we live in a zero-sum universe, as if wealth were a fixed-size pie. If someone takes a large slice, inevitably there is less left for others. This perception turns life into a fierce competition. It makes us see others as rivals. It generates envy at the success of others, because every victory of another is perceived as our own loss. A person who lives under the dominance of the lead of scarcity may consciously desire wealth, but their subconscious energy is one of contraction and fear. It's like trying to attract butterflies while building a wall around them. The universe, which is a field of infinite abundance, cannot deliver its gifts to a consciousness that is fundamentally closed to them. 2. The mercury of unworthiness. Mercury in alchemy is volatile, unstable. Such is the belief of unworthiness, the subconscious feeling that I don't deserve it. This is the most personal and often the most difficult to detect toxin. It can have its roots in childhood, in messages that we were not good enough, or in cultural dogmas that associate wealth with evil or selfishness. A person with a strong belief in unworthiness is a master of self-sabotage. It's as if they have a prosperity thermostat set at a low level. If by a stroke of luck their income exceeds that level, their system panics. An unbearable dissonance is created between their external reality and their internal identity. And their obedient mind will find in a creative and often dramatic way a way to get rid of the excess to return to their familiar state of lack. They will make a disastrous investment, lend money that will never be returned, or face an unexpected crisis that will consume their resources. The mercury of unworthiness makes you feel guilty for receiving, uncomfortable with success, and leads you to reject the opportunities that the universe presents to you. 3. The salt of struggle. Salt in alchemy represents the body and suffering. The salt of struggle is the belief that wealth must be earned with sweat, blood, and tears. It is the idea that prosperity is intrinsically linked to sacrifice and pain. This belief makes us distrust everything that comes easily. If an opportunity seems too good to be true, we sabotage it. If we find a path that brings us joy and prosperity at the same time, we feel a subtle guilt, as if we were cheating, as if it were not real work. The salt of struggle keeps us trapped in the industrial equation of time for money. It makes us value effort over result, busyness over effectiveness. And it blinds us to the most elegant truth of the universe, that creation at its highest level is not an act of force, but of flow and alignment. 4. The shadow of fear. Finally, poverty consciousness is protected by 4 guardians, 4 fundamental fears that prevent our liberation. The fear of loss. The terror of having wealth and then losing it is, for many, worse than never having had it. This fear keeps us playing small, avoiding any risk. The fear of responsibility. The belief that having a lot of money brings overwhelming pressure and responsibilities that we will not be able to handle. The fear of judgment. The belief that if we become prosperous, people will envy us, criticize us, or reject us. The fear that our friends and family will see us as different. The fear of corruption. The belief that money is an evil force that will inevitably turn us into selfish, superficial, or unhappy people. These fears act as the four horsemen of the financial apocalypse, keeping our consciousness locked in the safe but miserable fortress of scarcity. The first glimpse of gold, prosperity consciousness. Alchemy is not just a process of purification, it is a process of transformation. The goal is not just to eliminate the lead, but to turn it into gold. And what is the gold of prosperity consciousness? It is a radically different perception of reality. The alchemist does not see wealth as an accumulation, but as a flow. He understands that money is energy, and that, like all energy, it must circulate to maintain its vitality. His goal is not to hoard, but to become an increasingly wide channel for that flow, giving and receiving with grace and ease. The alchemist does not see wealth as a result of effort, but as a reflection of value. His focus is not on how can I earn more, but on how can I give more value. He dedicates himself to cultivating his unique gifts and to serving others in the most elevated way possible, knowing that money is the natural and inevitable consequence of genuinely provided value. And most importantly, the alchemist does not see wealth as an identity, but as a tool. He does not fuse his self-esteem with his bank account. He understands that money is a wonderful resource to amplify his purpose, to take care of his loved ones, and to contribute to the healing and beauty of the world. This de-identification frees him from the fear of loss and allows him to play the game of prosperity with an audacity, creativity, and joy that poverty consciousness could never imagine. The alchemical process, transmuting the base metals. The initiate in metaphysical secrets does not despair upon recognizing the base metals of his poverty consciousness. He knows they are not a sentence. They are, in fact, the raw material for his great work. He enters his inner workshop with the calm of a master and begins the process of transmutation. 1. Transmuting the lead of scarcity into the gold of abundance. The alchemist takes the heavy, dense lead of scarcity. He does not try to fight it with force. He knows that fighting scarcity is still an energy of scarcity. Instead, he dissolves it with the most potent universal acid, gratitude. The master's practice is a radical immersion in gratitude. It is not a simple mental list. It is a ritual. He sits in silence and begins a gratitude burst. For 10 minutes he writes in his journal, without stopping, everything he is already abundant in. He starts with the obvious, the roof over his head, the food in his fridge, the air in his lungs. But he doesn't stop there. He gives thanks for friendship, for a happy memory, for the color of the sky, for the technology that allows him to listen to these words. He keeps writing until the logical mind surrenders and the heart opens. At that moment, a wave of warm emotion, the true vibration of gratitude, floods his being. He has stopped doing gratitude and has started being gratitude. The second practice for dissolving scarcity is the blessing protocol. The initiate knows that envy is the most powerful prayer for one's own lack. Therefore, he transmutes it. Every time he sees a manifestation of wealth in the world, a luxury car, a beautiful house, the success of a colleague, instead of allowing the contraction of envy, he performs a conscious act of blessing. Silently, he says, "I bless that abundance. May it multiply for the person who owns it. The universe is infinitely generous and there is more than enough for everyone. The success of another is proof of what is possible for me." This alchemical act transforms a poison into a vitamin. It turns a trigger of scarcity into an affirmation of abundance. 2. Transmuting the mercury of unworthiness into the silver of deservingness. The alchemist takes the volatile, unstable mercury of unworthiness. He knows that this belief of, "I don't deserve it," is the biggest energy leak in his system. To solidify it and transform it into the pure silver of deservingness, he uses the fire of self-knowledge and declaration. His practice is the archaeology of value. He takes his journal and becomes an archaeologist of his own genius. He asks himself the key questions. What did I love to do as a child before the world told me what was valuable? What problem in the world outrages me and I feel I could solve? What skills come so naturally to me that I don't even consider them skills? At the intersection of these answers, he discovers the gold of his unique value, a value that does not depend on external validation. Once he has unearthed this value, he must declare it. The initiate uses the I am decree as the tool to forge his new identity. He stands in front of the mirror and, looking into his own eyes, declares, I am worthy of all abundance. I am deserving of receiving the best of life. My worth is intrinsic and non-negotiable. He repeats it until he feels the truth of these words resonating in his body, solidifying the mercury of doubt into the shiny silver of certainty. 3. Transmuting the salt of struggle into the copper of flow. The alchemist takes the bitter salt of struggle. He knows that the belief in sacrifice is an anchor that keeps him tied to a sea of effort. To transmute it, he heats it with the flame of passion until it sublimates, changing from a solid, heavy state to a light vapor of joyful flow. His practice is alignment with genius. The initiate, having discovered his unique value, makes the radical decision to reorient his life around it. He stops asking himself, where can I make more money? And starts asking himself, where can I give more value in a way that fills me with joy? He begins to practice linguistic alchemy. He consciously replaces the word work with words like creation, service, or play. Today, I'm going to my studio to play with new ideas. Today, I have the opportunity to serve my clients. This change of language completely reframes the energy of his professional activity, transforming it from a burden into a privilege. 4. Transmuting the shadow of fear into the iron of faith. Finally, the alchemist faces the shadow of fear. He does not run from it. He invites it to the fire of consciousness to purify it and forge it into the unshakable iron of faith. His practice is the embrace the worst-case scenario technique. It is a technique of immense courage. He takes his greatest financial fear, the fear of bankruptcy, of losing everything, and instead of running from it, he explores it thoroughly in his journal. He asks himself, if my worst fear came true, what would really happen? Would I die? No, what would I do? How would I recover? What lessons would I learn from that experience? What strengths that I don't know now would be forged in me in that fire? By making peace with the worst possible scenario, he takes away its power to terrorize him. The energy that was once spent on avoiding fear is now freed up to create with audacity. He no longer plays to not lose, he plays to win. The alchemy of wealth is not a trick to make money. It is the sacred art of purifying your own consciousness. By transmuting your beliefs of scarcity, unworthiness, struggle, and fear, you don't just change your bank account. You change yourself. You stop being a gold seeker, and you become the philosopher's stone, the consciousness that, by its very nature, turns everything it touches into gold. Chapter 9. The Alchemy of Love. We have been conditioned to see love as a search, an external search for a person, a feeling, or a circumstance that will magically repair our wounds, fill our emptiness, and give us the happiness we lack. This perception turns love into a transaction, a market. We try to make ourselves more attractive, more successful, more interesting, not as an act of self-expression, but to increase our market value and be able to buy the love of the desired person. From this consciousness, the love life becomes a series of strategies, games, and fears. Should I call or wait? Am I being too intense or too distant? We become actors, playing a role we think the other wants to see, hiding our true vulnerabilities for fear that, if they see them, they will consider us unfit and reject us. And when we finally get the relationship, the energy of lack does not disappear. It transforms. The search turns into fear of loss. Love becomes a source of anxiety, jealousy, and control. We spend the relationship trying to manage and manipulate the other to continue filling our emptiness, to continue validating our fragile identity. Inevitably, the relationship collapses under the weight of this impossible demand. The forbidden secret, the alchemical truth about love is this: True, lasting love is not something you find. It is something you become. It is not something you get from another. It is something that radiates from your own being. The alchemy of love is not the art of finding the perfect person. It is the art of becoming the perfect person for yourself, deconstructing the base metals of love. Your love life, like your financial life, is a mirror. It reflects with relentless precision the state of your own consciousness. If your relationships are a recurring pattern of conflict, betrayal, or loneliness, it's not bad luck. It's because you are projecting that movie from an inner projector, loaded with the base metals of an unhealed love consciousness. 1. The lead of unworthiness. This is the foundation of all suffering in love. It is the deep and often unconscious root belief that I am not worthy of love. It is the feeling that there is something fundamentally broken or insufficient in us, and that if someone were to see our true self, with all our flaws and shadows, they would flee in terror. This belief is a magnet for relationships that validate it. It makes us attract partners who are emotionally unavailable, critical, or abusive, because on a subconscious level, their behavior aligns with our own belief that we don't deserve a healthy love. It turns us into people pleasers, people who sacrifice their own needs, their own boundaries, and their own truth to try to earn the other's love. We believe that love is something we must deserve through sacrifice. It makes us sabotage good relationships. When someone loves us and treats us with unconditional respect, a cognitive dissonance is created. Their love conflicts with our belief in unworthiness. And often, unconsciously, we create a drama or push the person away to prove their love, until finally they get tired and leave, confirming our original prophecy. See, I knew I wasn't worthy of love. 2. The mercury of fear. On top of the lead of unworthiness, the volatile structure of fear is built. Fear in relationships manifests in many ways, but all are born from the same source, the lack of an inner center of security. Fear of intimacy. This is the fear of being truly seen. We long for connection, but we are terrified of the vulnerability it requires. We maintain a safe distance, wear masks, hide our darkest parts. This fear leads us to superficial relationships where we never feel truly connected. Fear of abandonment. This is the terror of being left. This fear is born from the belief that our emotional survival depends on the other. It turns us into dependent, jealous, and controlling people. We suffocate the relationship with our neediness, and often we create the very abandonment we feared so much. Fear of being engulfed. This is the opposite pole. The fear of losing our own identity, our freedom in the relationship. This fear makes us sabotage intimacy, create distance when the connection becomes too deep, and run away from anything that looks like commitment. 3. The salt of resentment. Finally, the taste of our relationships is often soured by the salt of past wounds. Every broken heart, every betrayal, every disappointment that has not been completely healed and forgiven becomes a filter in our perceptual lens. We stop seeing our current partner. Instead, we project onto them the ghost of our ex or even our parents. We react to the present situation not for what it is, but for what it reminds us of. If a previous partner was unfaithful, we interpret a simple text message from a friend on our current partner's phone as proof of betrayal. If one of our parents was controlling, we interpret a simple suggestion from our partner as an attempt to dominate us. Unhealed resentment turns us into archaeologists of pain, always searching in the present for evidence to validate the wounds of the past. It is impossible to build a healthy relationship on the foundation of unresolved resentment. The first glimpse of gold, alchemical love. The alchemist does not look for love in the world. He knows it is a useless search. Instead, he retreats to his inner laboratory and begins the great work of cultivating love within himself. He understands a fundamental truth. You cannot receive what you are not willing to give yourself. The alchemical vision of love is based on a radically different principle than that of the better half. It is the principle of the full cup. The initiate understands that his first and most important relationship is with himself. He dedicates himself to filling his own cup with the water of self-love, unconditional acceptance, forgiveness, and joy. He does not do it to become more attractive to others. He does it for the simple joy of being in a loving relationship with his own being. And he practices this until his cup is not only full, but begins to overflow. That overflow, that abundance of love that emanates from his being, is the love he has to share with the world. He no longer relates from the need to get love, but from the pleasure of sharing his excess of love. This energy changes everything. You stop being an emotional beggar, and you become a source, and by the law of resonance, a source can only attract other sources. You stop attracting other beggars who want to drink from your empty cup, and you begin to attract other whole beings who want to share their own abundance with you. This is the forbidden secret of love. Stop searching and start being. The alchemical workshop of love. Practices integrated. The alchemist cannot pour the new wine of love into a vessel that still contains the bitter dregs of old poisons. The first work, therefore, is purification. The initiate knows that he must release the energy of resentment and fear that has been trapped in his field by past relationships. For this, he uses the power of forgiveness, not as a moral act, but as an energetic cleansing. In the solitude of his workshop, he performs the ceremony of liberation. He takes his journal and writes a letter to each person who has hurt him in the past. He pours onto the paper, uncensored, all his pain and anger, allowing the toxic energy to leave his system. Then, in an act of radical compassion, he tries to see the wound in the other, not to justify them, but to understand them. And finally, he makes the decree of liberation. I release you from the debt I thought you owed me. I free myself from the role of victim. I cut this chain. I am free. This ritual, repeated for every significant wound, is like cleaning the glass of all old impurities, leaving it clear and ready to receive. The second practice, the forging of the chalice, cultivating self-love. Once the glass is clean, the alchemist must make sure it is strong and has no cracks. He must forge the chalice of self-love. The tool for this forging is the mirror. The initiate stands in front of his own reflection, which is the most direct portal to his subconscious. At first, the practice is difficult. The inner critic, the guardian of the old belief of unworthiness, shouts its insults. But the alchemist persists. Day after day, he looks into his own eyes and begins a healing dialogue. He doesn't just repeat, I love you. He talks to the wounded child that resides within him. He gives it the recognition it never received. He says, I see you. You are valuable. You are enough exactly as you are. I am here for you. I will protect you. I love you unconditionally. This is not an act of vanity. It is an act of reparenting. It is the act of becoming the source of love and validation that he once desperately sought outside. With each of these sessions, the belief in his own unworthiness weakens, and the chalice of self-love becomes more solid, more brilliant, more capable of containing the energy of love. The third practice, the assumption of being loved, filling the chalice from within. With the purified and forged chalice, the master performs the final act of magic. He does not go out into the world to look for someone to fill his cup. He fills it himself from the infinite source of imagination. This is the practice of assumption. The initiate does not imagine finding someone. He assumes the state of being loved. In the stillness of the night, in the portal of the drowsy state, he does not feel lonely. He enters his mental theater and dresses in the garment of the beloved self. He does not necessarily visualize a specific face, but focuses on the sensation. He feels with an imaginary certainty the comforting presence of an ideal partner beside him. He hears in his inner ear the words of a conversation full of tenderness, respect, and admiration. He feels on his skin the warmth of a hug, the touch of a hand that holds his with love. And, most importantly, he bathes in the emotion that all this generates, a deep sense of peace, security, wholeness, and gratitude. He falls asleep in the embrace of his assumption. He is creating the memory of the future of a perfect love. He is filling his own chalice until it overflows. The inevitable reflection. When an individual has performed this alchemical work, when he has purified his past, forged an unshakable self-love, and assumed the state of being loved until it becomes his vibrational home, the external world has no choice but to reflect this new reality. His energy changes completely. He no longer emits the frequency of need, but that of wholeness. He no longer searches, he radiates. He becomes a lighthouse. And the ships that sail on that same frequency of self-love, respect, and wholeness are drawn to his light naturally, effortlessly, without struggle. The alchemy of love is not the art of finding the perfect partner. It is the art of becoming the perfect partner for yourself. It is the process of transmuting the lead of your own unworthiness into the radiant gold of self-love. When your chalice is full, it ceases to matter whether someone comes to drink from it. And it is in that precise moment of non-need, of sovereign wholeness, when the mirror of the universe has no choice but to reflect a love that corresponds to yours, a love that is complete, free, and true. Chapter 10. The Alchemy of Reality Itself. In this state of mastery, the focus changes. The initiate is no longer primarily concerned with manifesting things, more money, a new house, a relationship. Those are the games of the apprentice. The master alchemist has reached a deeper understanding. His goal is no longer to use the laws to decorate his life. His goal is to become such a pure expression of the laws that his life, naturally and effortlessly, becomes a work of art. Manifestation ceases to be a goal and becomes a byproduct, the inevitable echo of his own harmonious vibration. To reach this state of grace, the initiate must fully integrate three final realizations, three truths that dissolve the last layers of the illusion of separation and struggle. The first realization, non-separation, my desire and I are one. The first and deepest of these realizations is the dissolution of the gap between the creator and the created. In the lower levels of consciousness, we see our desire as something out there, something external that we must attract, get, or chase. There is an I here and a desire there. And as long as this perception of separation exists, the struggle will exist. The master alchemist, through the practice of assumption, arrives at a much more intimate truth. He understands that he cannot attract his desire. He must become it. He does not attract wealth. He becomes the consciousness of wealth. He does not attract love. He becomes the embodiment of love. He does not attract health. He becomes the vibration of health. He understands the secret that Neville Goddard taught. There are no two. My Father, consciousness, and I are one, and my Father is greater than I. The personal I is not separate from the quality it desires. The desire is a facet of universal consciousness that seeks to express itself through him. From this perspective, the act of manifestation becomes an act of recognition, not of acquisition. The master does not try to get abundance. He relaxes into the feeling of abundance that already exists as a potentiality within him, and allows that inner quality to express itself outward and be reflected in the mirror of the world. The practice here is subtle. The initiate stops visualizing his desire as an external object. In his meditation, he does not see himself getting the $1 million. Instead, he asks himself, what is the feeling, the vibration, the consciousness of the person who is already abundantly prosperous? And then he merges with that feeling. He becomes that vibration. He realizes that he is not separate from abundance. He is abundance expressing itself. When you reach this state of non-separation, neediness and desperation vanish. How could you long for something that you already are? The struggle ends, and in the silence of that peace, manifestation occurs with a speed and grace that seem miraculous to the mind that still believes in separation. The second realization, time as an illusion, creation is finished. The second great realization that defines the master alchemist is his radical reorientation with respect to time. The untrained mind lives in a prison of linear time. It lives chained to the past through regret.